when you're asked to do something that doesn't sit right with you, you're asked to do something that isn't part of your constitution as a man, how do you deal with those situations?
Charles Tillman spent 13 years in the NFL, then spent 8 years in the FBI forcing open doors on raids. But when the government told him to help round up immigrants, Peanut said no and walked away from it all. And the reaction from NFL players was something else. Let's get into it. Tilman quits the FBI. Charles Tillman resigned from the FBI in early 2025. He had served as a special agent out of the Chicago field office since 2018. His reason for leaving was simple, and he said it himself on the Pivot podcast in September 2025. The administration wanted FBI agents to assist in immigration enforcement operations alongside ICE, and Tillman refused to participate.
So, one of the reasons, well, let me start off by saying this. FBI was great to me. I did awesome. I worked with an amazing group of individuals.
Now hold on. Before anyone gets confused here, Tilman was never an ICE agent. He worked for the FBI. But in January 2025, agents in Chicago were directed to support ICE-led raids under a new crackdown that involved White House border czar Tom Homan and TV personality Dr. Phil McGraw. The operation was called Operation Midway Blitz, and it pulled together ICE, DEA, ATF, Border Patrol, and U.S. Marshals for mass arrests in the city. Reports indicate that over 20% of FBI resources were redirected to immigration duties.
I think some of the things that they're doing now, I personally didn't agree with.
Like what?
Immigration.
Tilman said the public messaging promised the government would go after the most dangerous criminals. But what he saw on the ground looked different. He described quota-driven arrests, sweeps of workers based on appearance, and tactics he viewed as racial profiling. He called it political theater.
Everybody was told you're gonna go after like the most dangerous criminals. But what you see on TV and what actually was happening is like people weren't going after that.
And that right there is the line Tilman drew in the sand. He said what was happening on the streets of Chicago did not match what was being promised on television. The targets were not the most dangerous. The targets were regular people. And for a man who spent 8 years kicking down doors to catch violent criminals, gang members, and drug traffickers, that distinction mattered.
And personally, that didn't sit right with me. That didn't sit right with my conscience. Like, you have the ability to refuse an order.
So that is exactly what Tilman did. He refused. On the day of one of the operations, he skipped the raid entirely and went to his daughter's basketball game instead. Then shortly after, he turned in his badge. Now, here is the part that separates Tilman from most of the agents who felt the same way he did. He acknowledged that many of his colleagues hated the new directives just as much as he did, but they could not afford to quit. They had mortgages, they had kids in school, they had pensions they could not walk away from. Tilman was different.
I was in a different position because of my previous career. I made enough money to where I could just walk away and say, you know what, guys? I'm okay. I think I'm good.
That previous career paid him approximately $49 million over 13 NFL seasons. So yeah, walking away from a government salary was not going to put him on the street. But the point he made was not about money. It was about conscience. He said he wanted to explain to his children one day that he made the right call. He wanted to be able to look them in the eye and tell them he stood on the right side of history.
At the end of the day, I want to be on the right side of history when it's all said and done.
And Tilman was careful to point out that he was not trashing the FBI. He praised the agency, he praised his colleagues, he said his 8 years were solid and that they did good work together. But the new policies coming down from Washington crossed a line he was not willing to cross.
Some of the stuff you guys are doing now, I don't necessarily agree with. And that's not in Chicago. That comes from Washington.
He left on good terms. No bad blood, no bitter taste. Just a man who looked at what was being asked of him and said no. The story broke wide open on the Pivot podcast in September 2025. And then, The Athletic published a deep profile in January 2026 that filled in every detail of his 8 years carrying a badge. And once those stories hit the internet, the reactions started pouring in. The Pivot hosts who sat across from him during that interview had the first and loudest responses. And what they said about Tilman set the tone for everything that followed. The Pivot reacts. Ryan Clark, Fred Taylor, and Channing Crowder have interviewed hundreds of athletes, entertainers, and public figures on the Pivot podcast. But when Charles Tillman sat down with them in September 2025, the three former NFL players heard stories that left them genuinely stunned. This was not a typical retirement interview. This was a man describing FBI raids, foot chases, hostage rescues, and the moment he decided to walk away from all of it. Clark, the former Pittsburgh Steelers safety and current ESPN analyst, called Tillman's transition from the NFL to the FBI the greatest pivot ever. He drew parallels between the way a quarterback reads a defense and the way an FBI agent reads a room during a raid. The decision-making speed, the awareness of threats, the ability to stay calm under extreme pressure. Clark saw the connection immediately and made sure the audience understood that Tillman did not just stumble into this career, he was built for it. When Tillman told stories about chasing fugitives on foot, Clark's reaction was pure entertainment. Tillman described hopping fences and running down suspects in casual clothes, including a pair of Jordans. Clark could not contain himself, joking about the absurdity of a former Pro Bowl cornerback sprinting after criminals in sneakers, but the humor always circled back to admiration. Clark understood that Tillman was not playing games. This was real law enforcement work with real consequences. On the resignation, Clark took a more serious tone. He shared a clip on X with the caption emphasizing Tillman's stand, and that post pulled in 2,975 likes and 619,000 views. Clark empathized with the impossible position Tillman was in, being told to carry out orders that contradicted everything you believe in, knowing that refusing could end your career, but also knowing that complying could haunt you for the rest of your life. Clark made it clear he thought Tilman chose correctly. Channing Crowder, the former Miami Dolphins linebacker, came at it from a different angle. He wanted to know why Tilman would voluntarily leave the relative safety of retired NFL life to go kick down doors and dodge bullets. Crowder asked him straight up, "You go from getting hit by 300-pound linemen to facing down armed suspects, and you chose that?" It was a fair question. The NFL is violent, but the FBI is a different kind of violent. There are no referees, there are no replay reviews, and the people on the other side are not trying to tackle you. They are trying to survive. But Crowder's skepticism turned into respect quickly. Tillman told a story about a raid where a suspect recognized him mid-arrest. The guy looked up from the floor and said, "Hey, are you not Peanut Tillman?" Crowder burst out laughing. The image of a criminal having a fan moment while being arrested by the FBI is objectively hilarious. But Tillman's response to those moments was always the same. He would tell them they had bigger problems to worry about than his football career.
But I want to know, what is it like being a part of an FBI raid where the person in the raid goes, "Hey man, ain't you Charles Tillman?"
And Tilman described exactly what happened next in those moments. The fan excitement disappeared instantly.
It's kind of funny, but I would always say you got way more problems to think. You got more important problems to think about than me being Charles Tillman.
Reality would set in fast for those suspects because the man standing over them was not there for autographs.
Okay, I got some problems because I got the feds knocking on my door. And it just happens to be Charles Tillman and a bunch of other federal agents, but yeah, okay, stuff just got real.
On the ICE resignation, Crowder said Tillman showed real integrity to walk away when policies did not align with his personal values. He called the immigration tactics overreach and supported Tillman's decision completely. Fred Taylor, the former Jacksonville Jaguars running back, might have had the strongest reaction of the three hosts. Taylor called Tillman's FBI stories the best stories they had ever had on the show. That is saying something for a podcast that has featured some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment. Taylor expressed deep respect for the fact that most retired players coast into comfortable lives after football, but Tilman went out and put his life on the line for strangers. Taylor said most guys retire and chill, but Tilman went out and saved lives. When it came to the resignation, Taylor called it a masterclass in standing by your principles. He highlighted the specific detail about Tilman choosing his daughter's basketball game over the immigration raid. That choice was not just about skipping one operation, it was a statement. Tilman was telling the FBI and everyone else that his family and his values came first, and no directive from Washington was going to change that. Taylor also pointed to the broader issue Tilman raised about quota-driven arrests. The idea that agents were being pressured to hit numbers rather than focus on actual threats disturbed Taylor. He saw it as a corruption of the mission, and he respected Tilman for refusing to be part of it. The combined reaction from all three Pivot hosts was unanimous. Tilman was right to join the FBI, and he was right to leave. Not a single one of them questioned his decision. Not a single one suggested he should have stayed and followed orders, and their platform amplified the story to millions of viewers and listeners who might never have heard it otherwise. But the Pivot hosts were not the only NFL voices weighing in. Current and former players who had faced Tilman on the field had their own takes on his character, and their words added an entirely different layer to the conversation. NFL legends weigh in. Calvin Johnson knows what it feels like to catch a peanut punch. The Hall of Fame wide receiver faced Tillman multiple times during their overlapping years in the NFC North, and he did not hold back when assessing Tillman's impact. Johnson called Tillman an ultimate competitor and credited the peanut punch for adding an entirely new dimension to defensive football. Johnson admitted he caught a few of those punches right in the ribs over the years, and then he said something that carries real weight coming from a player of his caliber. Johnson said that because of those forced fumbles, there is a legitimate conversation about the Hall of Fame with Tilman and that he is worthy. That endorsement from Johnson matters because it connects Tillman's on-field intensity directly to the kind of person who would join the FBI and then quit on principle. Johnson ranked Tilman among the top cornerbacks he ever faced, and that ranking was not just about physical talent, it was about relentlessness. Tilman never stopped coming. He never took a play off, and that exact mentality is what carried him through 8 years of FBI work and ultimately gave him the backbone to say no when the orders did not match his values. TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers provided another piece of the puzzle. Watt has 36 forced fumbles in his own career, and he directly credited Tilman for influencing his technique. Watt said he learned the peanut punch from a coach who had worked with Tilman, and that studying Tilman's film helped him develop one of the most dangerous ball-stripping games in modern football. Watt's reaction in the context of the resignation article underscored respect for Tilman's innovative mind, a mind that did not just accept things as they were, but constantly looked for a better approach, whether that was forcing fumbles or forcing the FBI to reckon with its own policies. Anthony Adams, the former Chicago Bears defensive tackle who played alongside Tilman, reacted to both the FBI career and the resignation with the perspective of someone who saw Tilman up close every day in practice. Adams said that anytime he saw the word Tilman and the number 33, he started running because he knew there was a chance the ball was getting punched out. Adams said Tilman never gave up on a play, and that playing alongside him forced everyone around him to elevate their game. That work ethic, according to Adams, made Tilman's FBI career unsurprising. A man who refuses to take a single snap off in football is not going to take a single day off in law enforcement. And when that same man walks away from the job, you know the reason is serious. And Ndamukong Suh, the former Detroit Lions and Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive tackle, interviewed Tilman on his own podcast called No Free Lunch. Suh called Tilman's move from NFL All-Pro to FBI Special Agent a really cool pivot and explored how Tilman's adaptability from football translated directly to success in federal law enforcement. Suh was particularly interested in the parallels between reading offensive formations and reading dangerous situations in the field. On the resignation, Suh praised the decision as a principled move after 8 years of dedicated service. Now, to understand why these reactions carry so much weight, you need to understand what Tilman accomplished on the football field. He was drafted by the Chicago Bears in the second round of the 2003 NFL Draft, 35th overall. Born February 23, 1981, he grew up as a military brat, attending 12 different schools because his father served 20 years in the U.S. Army, including time stationed in Germany. That upbringing built discipline and adaptability into his DNA before he ever touched a football. At the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, Tilman recorded 284 tackles, 12 interceptions, and 5 forced fumbles over 4 college seasons. He then spent 12 seasons with the Bears from 2003 to 2014 and appeared in 168 games with 164 starts. His career numbers are staggering. He finished with 912 total tackles, 38 interceptions for 675 yards and 8 touchdowns, 140 pass deflections, 44 forced fumbles, 9 fumble recoveries, 3 sacks, and 2 blocked kicks. He had at least 3 interceptions in 9 of his 13 professional seasons. He earned 2 Pro Bowl selections in 2011 and 2012, a first-team All-Pro nod in 2012, and the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award in 2013 for his philanthropic work through his Cornerstone Foundation, which supports families with critically ill children. That foundation was inspired by his daughter Tiana's heart transplant in 2008 when she was just 2 years old. In 2012 alone, Tilman forced 10 fumbles and returned 3 interceptions for touchdowns. He helped the Bears reach Super Bowl XLI in 2006, a game they lost to the Indianapolis Colts 29-17. Tilman has said he still has never watched that game and that he hates February because of it. He signed with the Carolina Panthers in 2015, reunited with former Bears coach Ron Rivera, and helped them reach Super Bowl 50 before being placed on injured reserve with a torn ACL. He retired on July 18, 2016, with a humorous YouTube video where he peanut punched himself into retirement. His teammate Lance Briggs called him the ultimate foxhole player, the kind of guy you want next to you when everything goes sideways, and that reputation followed Tillman from the gridiron straight to Quantico. But Tillman's FBI career was not all policy disagreements and moral stands. Before the ICE controversy, he spent years doing real field work, and one of the wildest stories from that period involves a Chicago rapper who looked up during a raid and could not believe who was standing over him. Lil Reese met Agent Tillman. In 2018, federal agents, including the FBI and Chicago Police Department, raided Lil Reese's home in Chicago. The rapper, whose real name is Tavares Lamont Taylor, was part of the drill music scene and had gained prominence through collaborations with Chief Keef. During the raid, agents seized approximately $100,000 in cash. Lil Reese has claimed that money was never returned, even after no charges were filed against him. But the detail that turned a routine federal operation into a viral moment was who showed up at the door. Reese recognized one of the agents. It was Charles Tillman.
Yeah, hell yeah. When they ran to my crib, me and my homies them, like they had put all us in the kitchen.
Reese described tapping his associate on the floor and pointing out the former Bears cornerback standing in his house wearing a federal badge. He asked Tillman directly.
So I'm telling my homie, I'm tapping my homie, I'm like, man, ain't this the football player? And then I tell him like, what's up? Ain't you Charles Tillman?
Tillman's response was minimal. He did not confirm or deny. He just told Reese not to worry about it.
He like, don't worry about it. And I told my homie, like, man, this him. This dude, this that who used to play for the Bears. He a federal agent.
The story first surfaced publicly in 2019 through Hip Hop Lately, and then Reese told the full version in a 2022 interview with Vlad TV that has since pulled over 360,000 views. He talked about the seized money and the fact that no charges were ever brought. Reese said he never tried to get the 100,000 back because he compared it to the BMF story where Southwest T got caught trying to recover $4 million worth of jewelry, which led to the entire organization being unraveled. Reese decided the smarter move was to take the loss and move on. Now Tillman addressed the incident himself in The Athletic's January 2026 profile. He denied speaking with Reese during the bust and called the $100,000 seizure claim a lie. Tillman emphasized the raid was a joint operation with local police and part of standard investigative work. So the two sides of the story do not match up, and they probably never will. But the incident became a pop culture footnote that followed Tillman throughout his FBI tenure. On Reddit, threads in Bears, R Cheericology, and R NFL turned it into a running joke. Users posted comments like, could you imagine getting your house raided and all of a sudden Peanut Tillman walks in? Tillman used aliases during his field work. His go-to was Wendell Thompson. He tried to stay unrecognized, but when you are 6'2", 200 pounds, and spent over a decade on national television, anonymity is hard to maintain. Suspects spotted him regularly, and each time the reaction followed the same pattern. A moment of disbelief, then the realization that this was very much real. Tilman described those moments on The Pivot, saying once people got past the initial shock, reality set in fast. They stopped thinking about football and started thinking about getting arraigned. Beyond the Reese raid, Tillman's FBI resume was packed with high-stakes operations. He participated in thwarting a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. He rescued hostages. He responded to the Highland Park shooting. He served on a Safe Streets task force targeting violent crimes, gangs, and high-threat investigations out of the Chicago field office. He trained in firearms, close quarters combat, and even taught law enforcement techniques overseas in Kenya. And through all of it, he maintained a standard of treating people with dignity. He talked about offering arrested suspects gum or allowing them to say goodbye to their families before being taken in. He said, I am not here to judge you, bro. We all human. That standard is what made the ICE directive so unbearable for him. Tilman spent years chasing the worst people in Chicago, the gang leaders, the traffickers, the violent offenders. That was the mission he signed up for. When the mission changed to sweeping up construction workers and filling quotas, he was done. The social media reaction to Tillman's entire story, from the FBI entry to the resignation, was overwhelmingly positive. On Reddit, the top comment on the RNFL thread scored 2,226 upvotes and read, Charles Tillman is an awesome human being. Respect for that guy goes way beyond rooting interest. On X, Ian Yeager's post about the resignation pulled 4,406 likes and 4,189 replies, making it one of the most engaged posts on the the topic. Say Cheese DGTL's post got 726 likes. NFL Rums hit 1,369 likes with 190 replies, and Susie Arizo1 called Tillman a hero in a post with video that got 294 likes. Tillman's career after football was rare for a professional athlete, but he was not entirely alone. Lavernus Coles, the former Jets wide receiver, joined the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in 2025. Brandon Hughes, former Eagles cornerback, was sworn in as a police officer with Falls Township. Javid Best, the former Lions running back, became an officer with the San Francisco Police Department. Dominique Williams graduated from the NYPD Academy in 2022. Jacksonville alone has at least 7 former NFL players serving as officers. And from other sports, Jack Tashner, a former MLB pitcher, joined the Appleton Police Department, while Darren Quint, a former NHL player, trained to become a Phoenix police officer. But none of them generated headlines like Tillman. None of them quit a federal agency over a policy dispute and then told the whole world exactly why on a podcast. Tilman was inducted into the Chicagoland Sports Hall of Fame in 2025 and the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. His Cornerstone Foundation continues supporting families with critically ill children. His daughter Tiana, now 17 and active in sports, may need another heart transplant in the future. And Tilman, the man who peanut punched his way through 13 NFL seasons and then spent 8 years as a federal agent, is at peace with every decision he made. He praised the FBI, he praised his colleagues, and he walked away with a clean conscience, which, according to Charles Tillman, is worth more than any badge or paycheck.